He was commenting the weather and the conditions and the snow and the temperature. So I told her I was going to tell just a really, really short joke is, and Norma, you can't, because you might know the answer to this. So out west in Edmonton, what do people call a day like this with the snow and the temperature and everything?
Summer.
Wednesday. Thank you for coming live. We have probably a dozen or more here, and on Zoom we have another. We're probably close to 20 in total. Stephen Stein was scheduled to give our reflection, and I'll just run the mic over to him so he can do that.
Today, I would like to talk about professionalism and the Pearson accident. There's an old African saying which I love, which is, when you pray, move your feet. And what that means is, don't just, there might have been a miracle, there might have not. But when you're praying, you got to do something about it. God's not just going to simply sit there and answer. And so, with the accident, we had airline attendants, not stewards anymore, but airline attendants doing magnificent work under incredible pressure. We had firemen, first responders, getting to the airplane quickly so there was no fire, no major fire, and no explosion. And also, Bombardier made the plane in such a way that if it landed that way, the wing would come off, so the explosion would be away from the fuselage. And remember, Bombardier is Canadian and just saved 80 people. Boeing's American, and they killed 300 or 400 in their last version. So basically, all I wanted to say is there's a lot of professionals out there, and professionals just aren't the jerks that are multi-billionaires with tech companies. So, I'm in favor.
Thank you, David. Very good reflection. Norma, are you ready to introduce our guest speaker?
Absolutely.
Okay. David, is everything okay on your end?
Yeah, I will share the screen once she's up and ready to go.
Okay, here she comes.
Hi there. As most of you know, our club is supporting 2 Facing History workshops. The first is the Civil Discourse Workshop, supporting educators using Facing History's framework for fostering civil discourse. It will be held at Oise next Friday. Jackie, Tom Knott, and I will be attending the workshop. The second workshop for teaching equity and justice will be a 2-day workshop this summer to provide training for 40 Toronto area educators and administrators. It is my pleasure to introduce Leora Schaeffer, Executive Director of Facing History and Ourselves Canada. We were introduced to Facing History and Ourselves by Tibor's daughter, Anne Gregoire, and we're now supporting 2 workshops in honor of Tibor's legacy that Leora will tell you more about. Leora has worked in the field of education for over 25 years. With a B.Ed from the University of Winnipeg, Leora was a classroom teacher at the start of her career. In 2003, after receiving her MA from Brandeis University in Massachusetts, she joined the Facing History office in Boston. In 2008, she opened Facing History's Canada office in Toronto. Under her leadership, Facing History Canada has grown into a network of over 17,000 educators, every province and territory. Leora is driven by the goal that every student across the country will have a classroom experience that inspires to learn from the lessons of history so that they feel empowered to stand up against bigotry and hate. I now introduce you to Leora Schaeffer.
So David, you have my slides.
Yeah, I'm going to pull them up now.
Perfect. And everyone on Zoom can hear me?
Yes, can you guys see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. I think we're ready to go. Oh, this is a weird view. I'm gonna move my screen here. Is that a little bit better for you guys? You're gonna look at my nose if I'm not careful. I want to say thank you for the investment in facing history in ourselves. It's a great honor. I had the opportunity to speak with Anne and learn about her
Oh, this
father.
is the Wednesday meeting.
Is there a sound? Are we okay?
You're good.
I'll be about
Okay.
half an hour, so that's all.
Stephen, mute yourself, please.
Okay. So it was it is a great honor to be chosen as an organization to represent Tibor. I had the opportunity to speak with Anne and learn about her father. And again, it just feels very meaningful that Facing History was chosen to because of the way Anne and the committee saw our work being in line with the mission and life of someone who just sounds like just such an incredible person. So let me start with that, just saying thank you and a bit of gratitude. I'd like to spend the next 30 minutes, maybe a little less, that way maybe there's some time for questions, giving a little bit of a background about Facing History, and also telling you a little bit about our work in general, but also the specific investments that you're making in our work through those 2 workshops. And I really appreciated the opening talking about professionalism. I think that too often in our society, educators don't get the gratitude and the respect that they are so deserving of. I know Jackie, I think is on, oh, I see Jackie is on Zoom, and she understands deeply the impact and importance of educators in shaping our future leaders and our society as a whole. And the work of educators, I've been doing, as you heard in my bio, I've been at this for a long time. And I would say teaching has not become easier. It has become much, much more difficult, not only because of resources that our province is restricting and not giving to education. And then obviously the world has become a much more difficult place. And with that, teachers have a much more difficult job in not only teaching content. Obviously, students need to learn to read, to write, they need to know about history, they need math, this is what they need to learn, but they also need to learn how to be humans and how to be those future leaders and professionals that are so at the center and heart of the work of Rotary. So let me, David, can you shift to the next slide? So our mission is, as you can see on the screen, to engage young people in lessons of history and learning in a deep way, the lessons of history in order to stand up to racism, anti-Semitism, and other forms of bigotry and hate. When we began, and we do that through professional development of teachers. So our lever, our method, our change model are the teachers, and we support teachers through curriculum development, through resources for the classroom, but also for professional learning. So what you may not know is that teachers spend a lot of time learning and becoming, and continuing. We talked about professionalism at the beginning, honing their skills and spending time often after school or in the summer, learning and deepening. And that is where Facing History works with schools and administrators and teachers to help support them as they learn the lessons of history. So if you think back, I don't know, we all learned history in different courses in different times. I'm from Winnipeg, but if you think back to the way you learned about history, right? Just think about that history course that you took. It was likely similar to my own, where we memorized dates and places, right? Does this sound familiar to what you experienced in your classroom? You memorized dates and places, you wrote a test, and then what did you promptly do?
Getting on.
Forget, exactly, right? We learn, we memorize, we regurgitate, we do what the teacher, if we're good students, we want to succeed, we regurgitate all that information, and then we move on and we forget. The other thing we do is we used to teach history, and many classrooms that aren't facing history classrooms still do this. We teach about something. So if we think about the current grade 10 history course in this province, it goes from World War I through to today. Now that means that every year that course becomes 1 year longer, right? Nobody's taking off any of these years. It just gets longer and longer. So and the way that course is taught is you start with World War I, you write the test, it gets neatly tied up and put away. And then what do you think the next unit is? World War II. There's often like a little section in between where you're learning about inflation, you're learning about, right? So the interwar years, World War II, you tie it up, you neatly put it away. Then we're on to the Cold War, right? You move on and on. And actually, if you think about the way history works, that's not how it just doesn't evolve that way. We actually have in our histories connect. There are legacies of each of these histories. And let's just think, I'll just say very personally, the history of World War II for me and my family and my community as a Jewish person did not end at the end of World War II. And for many of you, there are histories that live in you and your families and in your community. They don't neatly tie up. So in a moment, I'm going to show you how we approach the teaching of history, but I'll also say we work with English teachers now through novels and literature. We work in the social sciences, we work in history, and we also support teachers sort of across the board as they're working to build classroom spaces where all students can show up and learn. So David, can you switch to the next slide? So as we began, so let me say, Facing History began in the US in 1976. We've been at this for a very, very long time. We are not a Jewish organization, although our first case study was looking at the history of the Holocaust. Not as a Jewish event, but as a watershed moment in human history. Now, as we bring these very difficult histories into the classroom, this is hard work, right? You can imagine if you're going to teach an honest history, if you're going to look at the complexity of the history, not only do you need curriculum and content that supports that, but you also need to be able to create classrooms where all students can feel that they can show up as their best self, where they're not having to conceal part of who they are, where they feel that their voice matters, where their voice is heard. And this is where classrooms become tricky. Classrooms where a teacher puts a PowerPoint up, gives the lecture, shuts their computer and leaves for the day, that's easy. Classrooms where we open up these moments to meaningful conversations about the complexity of the histories. Those classrooms need strategies to build community. And as we did that, as we were doing that work, we developed over the last nearly 50 years strategies to have classrooms where students can talk about important issues that matter to them. So just keep that in mind, because I'm going to come back to that in a moment. David, can you switch to the next slide? So here's how we do this. And this should look, hopefully, well, let me say this. I hope you had a wonderful history teacher in your life. I hope that when you think about how history impacted your life and how learning mattered to you, I hope that that's what happened. Jackie, I know for certain, because she's worked with some of our Facing History educators and has worked with fantastic educators. I know that she's seen educators who deeply engaged young people in the lessons of history and deeply engaged young people in thinking about it, about what happens when you can engage students meaningfully. So this we call our pedagogical triangle. Hopefully this resonates with you. So when we think about teaching, if we're teaching anything, it has to be intellectually rigorous. No one wants to feel like they are being talked down to or having part of the history
Muted.
concealed or hidden from them. For years, we thought that in order for Canadian young people to feel patriotic and connected to Canada, we could only
window.
share the glowing moments of Canadian history.
Mhm.
But actually what we know is that that does not engage young people, and we can trust young people, just like we can trust ourselves, to both be patriotic, love Canada deeply, feel very proud to be Canadian, not wanting to be another state of another country,
Mhm.
wanting to be Canadian, but also know that we're not perfect, that we have a deeply imperfect history. And that needs, so we need to be intellectually rigorous. We need to provide young people with content that engages their head. We also need to engage young people's heart, and that's emotional engagement. And we do that through hearing personal testimony. So when I read this beautiful piece that Anne wrote about her father and the histories that he lived, that touched my heart. That's learning about a person. That's more than dates and places. That's the lived experiences of people, hearing survivor testimony, learning about learning about the residential schools through the voices of Indigenous people. That touches your heart. So you have the head and your heart. Ethical reflection, those are the big questions that we ask of history. In rote memory classes, there's no space for this. This is the space that actually feels very vulnerable for teachers. So if you think about how teachers, the big questions that students might ask, how does neighbor turn against neighbor? How are perpetrators capable of perpetrating enormous horrors on other people? These are big questions, and they don't have easy answers. In fact, they don't have easy answers. You know that you're engaging ethical reflection when it's not a multiple choice. You cannot give an A, B, C, or D, choose which one is right, to ask how could a neighbor turn against a neighbor? How is it humanly possible? But we want to engage young people in asking these big questions, even when there are no simple answers. When you have the head, the heart, the guts, I think that's where like your moral compass lives, right in here. When you have that all connected, that's when young people are motivated to actually do something. And that's at the heart of facing history. We want to learn from the lessons of history in order to stand up against bigotry and hate, in order to recognize that my choices matter. We have a great tagline. I think you'll see it on the last slide. People make choices, choices make history. People make choices, choices make history. You are all, as Rotarians, deeply, I've done a little learning over the years about Rotary, you understand the roles that people must take. You have to walk. You can't just wait, you're walking. You have to do the work. It takes work, and we need young people to actively. And it's so hard because young people feel that they have zero power in the world. They can't vote. They can't drive until they're 6. Like, what am I supposed to do? And yet they're so full of energy and ideas. I think I said at the beginning, teachers are building future leaders. I actually tried not to say that. It comes out so easily, but actually young people are leading today. When we see what young people are capable of in schools, on the street, around environmental change, right? They are the activists and they're doing work right now, but we need to help them with the tools to find out, how do you create change? So that's this informed civic engagement. We want young people to not feel totally overwhelmed, which the world is right now. Not feel totally overwhelmed, but dig in and walk, as you so beautifully said as you opened us today. I feel like you were prepped to speak in exactly the way I was talking today. So it was a perfect opening. David, the next slide. So this is just quickly, you can see that this models what I was talking about before. This is our approach to teaching. This is what our classroom teachers, whether they're coming through history or whether they're entering into this work through literature and novels, They begin with, so facing history, often people shorten our title because it's a lot of words, a lot of letters, and to face just facing history, and they forget the ourselves part. I sometimes do it. The ourselves part is the most important part of our name, and it always gets left off. We have to start with who we are. What are we doing? What's impacting and shaping my identity? Because so often my identity is also shaped by who I'm not. I'm part of this group. I'm not part of that group. I sit with this group. I don't sit with that group at lunch. I go to this is my religious group. I'm not part of that religious group. And that is normal human behavior. Actually, it's quite powerful, right? You all do your work because you're part of Rotary. You have this group together and you get things done as groups. So groups are actually really important. But we also see in history how they can become manipulated, how human behavior and that tendency to divide, you put certain circumstances in place, economic downturn, powerful leaders, charismatic leaders. We see this not just with the Holocaust. We see this in other histories. Divide can be used against us. Ultimately, when I talked about that legacy that lives, we're not tying up histories neatly and saying, okay, we're done that. We're not going to think about it again. We think about judgment and memory. How do we commemorate moments? And then ultimately, that's the civic engagement, choosing to participate. What am I going to do? How am I motivated? What's my issue? It might be very different than your issue, but I'm going to do this. This is I want to create change in this area. I want to use the tools and the power I have and the levers I have to create change. So we want to empower young people. And that's very unique to facing history in ourselves and the way we approach examinations of history in whatever classroom setting that we're in. David, can we change the slide? Oh, no, actually, don't change the slide. Back. It's when I don't have control. Maybe I'll pause here before I show you the last slide and share a piece of new work that we're doing that is what we're going to be sort of focusing next week when we bring teachers together for the workshop. But are there any thoughts, questions, connections to our work that you'd like either online or in the room? Yes, sorry.
Yeah, the question is, when I grew up in the city and I had I was very unfortunate. I only went to Baptist Heights and not Northern, but it really wasn't public, there wasn't a public school system. There was the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant system. And I had an all-Jewish school and we had to celebrate Christmas and on and went. History was like that. Didn't learn the Holocaust really until I was in university. And I think what you guys are doing is fantastic. But let me add one thing. When I was growing up, and I expect school is like this, if you're really good in math and sciences, you're smart. If you're not that good in math and sciences, but you're really good in history.
Yeah.
That needs to change.
So can you hear on Zoom what the question was?
Yeah.
Oh, you could. Oh, wow, that's some great sound. So I think that is an issue. I think that the humanities in general are not valued. I actually think that STEM needs an E around empathy. You know, what is science and technology if we're also not thinking about the people? I think that humanities bring that to our studies. I know that Jackie can say that, you know, that the history departments are always the ones that have fewer electives, that unfortunately, great electives. We worked with TDSB on an elective called Genocide and Crimes Against Humanity, which was an examination of not only the Holocaust, but also the Armenian genocide and the Rwandan genocide. And it was actually 2008. So there was a small little unit on the residential schools, but we didn't know enough at the time. I mean, we should have known more at the time, but we didn't. So there was this very sort of at the time innovative and very forward-looking mini unit. But now teachers who teach that course teach quite a bit. And one of the units is always about the residential schools. There is a move to include and mandate in TDSB one of the 4 courses that live in the humanities, and the genocide and crimes against humanities course is one of those offerings. But I wish I could tell you that like everything has changed and history and humanities are valued. I don't think that they're resourced enough. And I think that they are incredibly, incredibly important for our young people. And we work in schools to try to do that work to make sure that wherever possible, we're there to support those classrooms so that the thing is that if you have a great history teacher in a school, that history department flourishes. Northern, where Jackie was, had an amazing, has actually, and still has an amazing history department. It's very robust. So in fact, I think having more facing history classrooms helps move the needle around that. But I do still think that science and technology are really, they're resourced. And I think, and I'll show you the next slide because I think that there's more that's needed even beyond the humanities.
That one thing very quickly, the thing that we were taught in high school, and I didn't really have a good learning experience till I got to university, was the way to get ahead is to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
And if you stood out, you were a problem. Of course, you learn that the people who stand out are the people who get things done.
I think you're right. Tom, you had a question before I go on.
I'm still digesting this. All my life, there's been an objective. It's to do what the teacher wanted, to get the marks to graduate. What you're showing here is an ability to treat somebody as an equal and present the problem and then listen to what they think. How do you rate that? How does TSB rate that? How do you
Grade it? How do you give a grade?
Yeah, but it's what the kids need.
Yeah.
They need to have the discipline to know how to take a problem and listen to.
How to learn, how to problem solve. Teachers are actually brilliant. I mean, I will say that there are ways to grade and to mark in ways that offer up opportunities for students with very different interests and learning modalities to be given a grade. We're still a grade system, but it doesn't have to be a test on like a memorization multiple choice test. There are really interesting ways to engage students, participation, journaling, art, so responding in different ways. So instead of an essay, you can also create an interactive piece or a presentation, so there's really, I think that there is actually a move away from those sort of grade driven, but at the same time, it is getting harder and harder to get into university. And so students who are academically driven will not take a course unless it's a university level course. And so that's also a challenge that I think we face. I think change takes time. I think that there are incredible educators partnered with great organizations and school systems. I think TDSB is making some inroads into thinking about how courses are taught and what's offered. So yeah, I wish I had some like perfect answer, but I do think that I think that it is so hard to get into university right now, and grades are that's all we have. I mean, my son just went to McGill. He's in his first year now. And I was shocked by like how few schools even asked him to write an essay. It was literally just your marks get inputted into a system. You check off what schools you want to go to and you get in or not. So, we're perpetuating a system, I think, through higher ed.
What you're doing is allowing the child to put some sort of structure around how he inputs and
Right.
gives back to the society. I've seen one teacher for my daughter who taught history, and he had role playing for Churchill and decisions. It meant so much for the kids to learn how to make a decision, and to realize the difficulty that decisions aren't simple.
And people aren't simple. We live in also sort of a cancel culture, but actually we need to we have to make space for, well, actually, this is a perfect transition to this final slide, because I want to give you a little taste, and then Tom and Jackie and Norma are coming to the workshop that we're doing, and they can report back to all of you. But this is, so as we've been doing the work in classrooms supporting teachers this year, and since October 7th of last year, classroom spaces are very, very hard. Teachers are very, very scared to open up to the very conversations that we know are critical for the kind of learning that we need to have happen in classrooms. And all of those strategies that I talked about at the beginning that we developed to hold classroom conversations, to sort of level the playing field. So I always say you were all in class. There was always the kid in the class who you asked a question and the kid's hand went up like first, right? Like the teacher barely finished answering the question. Maybe it's someone in this room, right? I see some honest reflection. The hand goes right up. And then there are kids, and maybe this is someone else in the room, that you just needed time. You just needed a little space to think and to reflect, to digest, and then you were ready. And so Facing History had strategies for sort of creating space so that all students in the classroom can participate. Those who have their hand right up, and the kids who need some time. All of these strategies and practices that we had developed weren't holding this moment. What we were seeing is that teachers were so scared of conversation, particularly around the politics in the Middle East and how it was impacting students' experiences here, that teachers were shutting down conversation, even in humanities classrooms where we're supposed to be talking about these issues. When classroom conversation is shut down, when you don't make space for me to speak in a classroom, the lesson I take is I don't belong. You've just told me that something that matters to me, my identity, there's no space in this classroom. And where do I go? I go to echo chamber. Like I go back into my space. That's a dangerous space for young people. It's a dangerous space for anyone. That's where we see extreme views. That's where we see radicalization on all sides. We need young people to be able to talk about hard things that matter in classrooms. That's where democracy is being built and shaped and practiced in a very diverse class. I mean, our classrooms in TDSB in Toronto and around Toronto, incredibly diverse. Okay, so I'm going to just walk you through this do I have like 5 more minutes? Yeah? Okay. Out of this moment, none of the strategies, none of the frameworks were really holding conversation. And so a colleague of mine, we started talking, actually coming out of our own hard moments of having one of my closest friends and colleagues, we couldn't talk about hard things. And so we started thinking about when we are at our best and we are able to talk with someone who has differing opinions, different life experiences, what do we do? And so this framework came to be. So we begin with humility, meaning I don't have all of the answers. Actually, let me take a step back. We also, our young people in classroom, they don't see people talking. There are no models out there. Our politicians don't talk to one another. We don't see it on the streets. People are just yelling. We yell at each other and we try to convince each other that you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. And our only engagement is more of a debate and a convincing. The purpose of this quad, we call it the quad of dialogue, is not to convince someone. We're going to visit someone's ideas. So, Norma, I can come to your house. I can enjoy a cup of coffee. I may or may not like how you decorate your house, but I can enjoy visiting your decor. I can enjoy visiting your house. We can sit there. When I come back to my house, I don't need to redecorate. I've just visited your house. I don't need to change. So this is what we think about with young people in these dialogue, and adults too. We're just visiting. I may decide, I liked how Norma put out her little knickknacks over there. I might take that and do that with mine. Maybe. I might learn something in a conversation that shifts my opinion, but it doesn't have to. What I do need to do is have a growth mindset that's really open to listening and learning about what that other person's views are and where they come from. And in order to do that, I need to start with humility, meaning I don't have all the answers. I don't have the only answers. And when I come into a conversation like that, I'm open to curiosity, because if I don't have all the answers, that might mean that, sorry, I only know some names in the room. Tom may have some answers for me. So I'm curious, I'm asking questions, and I'm engaging in conversation. And as I do that, even someone who has a very different opinion than I do, I'm starting to build empathy, because I'm seeing that person and I'm asking them hard questions. And out of that, I'm learning about that experience, that person's experience. As I'm building empathy out of curiosity, there has to be a recognition that this work it's imperfect. You may say something that's hard for me. I may say something that's hard for you, and we cannot use complexity and difficulty as like a tap out. We tap out of these conversations. We use it like an escape hatch. Complexity is an escape, I'm harmed. I don't want to hear that. I can't hear that. You have something different you have a different opinion than me. I'm going to tap out. I don't want to be part of this. You don't have to stay in if you're actually be like racist comments, like, no, leave. You don't have to stay. If you're actually like your identity is being harmed, you do not have to stay in. But I can be uncomfortable. This work is uncomfortable. And so understanding is that framework that begins the conversation. So this is what we're doing. We're going to spend a day with teachers about how to talk about difficult topics. This is one framework that we're going to be sharing. And actually, your investment has allowed us to do. This is new. And so your investments also allowed us to think more, slow our work down, and work on how to share this concept with teachers. And it's a pilot workshop, so on next week on Friday. So that's really exciting. We have a group of teachers from TDSB and TCDSB and some other sort of GTA teachers joining us. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to sharing with all of you. At the end, we'll send a report and share how it goes. And you'll hear from your other members who will be there. So in gratitude and thank you for that little bit of extra time. And again, just really, it's been a pleasure. If anyone has any other questions, here's my email, but also you can get in touch with me through Norma and Jackie have my email. I'm happy to continue conversation. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, Jackie's going to thank our speaker remotely.
Right. Thank you. Well, Tibor certainly was a remarkable man, and we were just so fortunate to have him as a member of our club. You know, he was a president of our club, he was district governor, but beyond that, he traveled the world representing Rotary presidents, and he proudly celebrated perfect attendance for 50 years as a Rotarian. Now, how do you do that and travel the world? Well, you do makeups. So he had friends all over the world because wherever he was, he went to a Rotary Club. And we actually have an award, an attendance award with Tibor's pipe. And if Walter Sotka could only find it in his basement, we'd share it with you. So come on, Walter, we need that plaque. Tibor's interest as a Rotarian were very much shaped by his experience in World War II. He was born in Slovakia. He attended the London School of Economics. That was interrupted by the Nazi invasion. He was displaced, but he joined the military, and he landed on the beaches of Normandy on day 3. And he was one of the first among the first Allied forces to liberate Dachau. He carried with him an understanding of the importance of education to promote international understanding and the need for young people to be able to engage in civil discourse, to learn about the controversial issues and current events, and to understand the fragility of our society and our democratic way of life. as a Rotarian, Tibor ran an essay writing competition every year at Havergal. He'd give them topics like what is the main threat to world peace, and what do you propose as a solution? The teachers there had every kid write it, and they sent the top 3 to Tibor, and he picked the winner, and there was a prize. This is how he tried to implement his life's concern. And if you read the papers and you listen to young people, never more true in today's schools, where teachers, they are afraid of conversation. And not surprisingly, because people generally don't talk to each other. They don't have conversations. They have shouting matches, or they have put downs, or they cancel culture, or all that. So but teachers can't ignore the political polarization that makes these discussions difficult. Teachers recognize, and they need the knowledge and skill and the resources to lead fact-based, student-centered discussions with confidence. And this is what Facing History in Ourselves provides. Leora, we are so grateful for you coming here today to help us understand the approach that will be used by 40 teachers in February and 40 more in that 2-day in-person workshop that we are sponsoring. I want you to know, folks, that it is our pleasure to forward to Facing History a check for $23,796 for the 2-day workshop in the summer for 40 teachers called Teaching Equity and Social Justice. Tibor would have been so happy to know that at a time of increasing hate speech, bigotry, and racial injustice, we are continuing his work to strengthen democracy in his beloved adopted country. Thank you, Leora, for coming.
We're going to go on with the business part of our meeting. You're welcome to stay, but if you have to leave, we totally understand. Okay, so we have 17 people here live. We have 9 guests, so total of 26 people. We're here to hear Leora's presentation. And we all benefit greatly from her doing so. Guests, is there anybody who's a guest here? We're all members, other than Leora, I think we're all members here today and online as well. So that's great. 26 members, very, very successful meeting. We've talked about birthdays. Ray Cowan was the 16th of February. Sandy Loudon's coming up on the 21st. And on the 27th of February is David Richardson's birthday. Great. So
What does that mean?
that means that they will be contributing $100 US, which is like about $150, or whatever the exchange rate is at the time, to support our Every Rotarian Every Year pledge. So we'll have a quick round of happy bucks. I'll go around the room first while online people are thinking of theirs. And I think we got the sound carries if you want to just speak loudly. Anybody? Lars is reaching for his wallet.
Yeah, I just want to extend the thanks, because I think this is a very important thing, and I'm happy that we have got them all there. Jackie forgot to mention one of Tibor's things, and that was that for many years he was a trustee of the Rotary Foundation. And I'm trying to find out where I have the money, but
Go with Norma, she paid for your lunch.
Over here, Lisa.
I'm just happy to be here. It feels like I got every flu and cough and cold and thing going around and all.
What am I sitting here?
Yeah, he's the one you want to say something.
I got $5. I just want to say, I love it when I get another idea. And Tibor had a essay contest that he used to go to schools with, Jackie. Maybe Toronto Eglinton Rotary could have a contest and have the teachers participate and run an essay contest on diversity and we'll see what happens, or have them run the students. Write some, and then we would donate some money to the student or some cause like that. I'd love to think about that a little further.
Yeah, great idea, Tom. Yep, great. As long as we don't have to mark them.
Okay, it's my turn there. I'm doing the end of the code again tonight. It's a wonderful thing, and I've got about 5 or 6 Rotarians helping me. And what I'm learning about our community, what I'm learning about this neighborhood of ours is phenomenal. You know, we're helping people find work. We're moving people around. It's unbelievable what the possibilities are. Again, it's the Out of the Cold program. It's a wonderful program. It's just a block from here. And again, as Rotarians, we volunteer about 5 people pretty much every 2 weeks. So anyway, I'm looking forward to tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
Put your money in here.
Do you wanna?
Official?
He's just happy to put money in.
Yeah, I've got 5 happy bucks there and very thankful and happy to be celebrating my birthday on Friday with my grandson on the 21st of the month, and he's 21.
Is there some online happy bucks?
No.
No? Oh, they're happy they didn't have to go through the flesh. Actually, there's one more financial thing we have to do here. Somehow I got past the registration desk without. Well, hey, but I don't know, you put the balance. Okay.
$35.
Happy bucks. There's probably some committee reports, but I'll let President Lars come up and take the microphone and introduce any reports that or motions that need to be passed.
Is Marion on here or?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm here.
So why don't we do that first then, Marion?
Okay, thanks, Lars. On behalf of the Community Service Committee, I would like to move a motion to donate $3,000 to the Avenue Road Food Bank.
Second.
Who was that? Tom? Second, okay. So all in favor? Okay, it's done.
Thank you.
We treated Marion badly last night. She was supposed to be at the board meeting, but we didn't let her in. So yeah, we had a
It's
board meeting.
okay.
And yeah, we made it up now. So, but thank
That's
you
right.
for everything you're doing. We had a board meeting yesterday, and this was one of the things we decided upon. We had some discussion. There are a handful, I think it's 7 members who haven't paid their dues completely. I paid my last share on the 30th of January, so I didn't have to be on that list that went around. But I'm sure that those in the room and on the Zoom who have not paid can either pay directly to Lisa here now or make sure that the money comes, because in reality you're not a member at this right now. So, and we have already paid for you because Rotary International is after us, that they haven't got the money, and anyway, so that
Will somebody tell us that?
Yeah, no, I'm like that too. So, but Lisa or David will contact the individuals with a love letter or call. Yeah, okay, but that'd be cool. The other thing that, and I think Ron touched upon it, and that is, and it goes well with what Jackie said about Tibor and his role in the Rotary Foundation, that as Rotarians, we are expected to also donate to the foundation. And you have hopefully heard the EREY, every Rotarian every year. And that is really that we try to get every Rotarian to give something to the foundation every year. There is $100 US number going around, and that is something that has been recommended, suggested, whatever. But even if it's just $10 one year, just to make sure that the foundation get the funds, because it is through the foundation that the Rotary organization can do wonders. And our club is involved in projects both locally and internationally, the water projects. And Ron could talk about it, Norma could talk about it, Jackie, Neelam, Joe Clark, and so on and so forth. Rotary does wonderful things in the world, and thanks. Walt?
I recommend that you give the Ontario government bribe of $200 to the Rotary Foundation.
Yeah, Walter, thank you. That's a good recommendation, or to our foundation for or club for the good, or others, you know. And there again, some people may need at least $100 of the 200. So whatever. I mean, we try to. Some clubs actually put the foundation contribution on the membership. Overall, our club is doing fairly well, but there are many clubs that are doing much more. And I'm particularly talking about the annual fund, which is the fund that is being used for the global grants. There are other funds too that we do very well, but that is very much individual contributions of significance. But for the annual fund, you know, the small things, the $50, the $100, and it's easy to do. You can either go through our own foundation and ask us to forward it to the Rotary Foundation or the Rotary Foundation Canada, but you can also go in on the Rotary website and donate it that way. And you can set it up like we have a couple of members in the club who on a regular basis automatically have funds taken out of the bank account. So, you know, there are very many options to do this. Anyway, enough of lecturing. I'm not going to go through what has happened in the world on this day, but as most people in the room hopefully know, otherwise we will know it from now on Sunday the 23rd, it is Rotary's birthday, and Rotary is 120 years old. It was 1905, the 23rd of February, that Paul Harris, the lawyer, invited Hiram Shorey, who was a tailor, Sylvester Schiele, who was the coal dealer, to Gustavus Lohr's office. Gustavus was a mining engineer. And they did this, or Paul did this as a small town individual coming to the big city of Chicago and feeling lonely, looking for some other people. So, and deliberately he decided to invite people who are not lawyers. And that was the idea with Rotary. You know, it's not another law society or another real estate organization. The idea was to mix people of various backgrounds. And very soon, the fifth Rotarian, who actually is referred to as the fifth Rotarian, Harry Ruggles, joined, and he became quite important. He ran a printing company, and he also introduced singing to Rotary. Senior Rotary members like Ron and me, and some other here remember that even in our club we used to sing, and there are a few clubs around the world that still sing, but anyway, it's important. The organization grew fast, so already at the end of the year they had 21 members, and the rest is history. The first club in Canada was the Winnipeg Club. That was 1910. In this environment, the Toronto Club was founded 1912. Was one of the first in Canada, and after that. So that's a little history about Rotary. I looked at the age of these four gentlemen when they first met, and they were basically in the early 40s. And maybe there is a little bit of a message there too when we look at membership, that is the group that we should look for. If someone who's 25 wants to join the Rotary Club, that is icing on the cake. But once people come up in the 40s, and we have someone like John McIntosh, who joined when he took early retirement from the bank, if I remember correctly, and got the opportunity. And Jackie, we tried to convince for years that she should join the Rotary. She retired from Northern as principal and then joined. So that is also another group. And anyway, and at that time, of course, it was only men. Rotary has developed tremendously with women. We just see that in our own club. What would we be without the women in our club? That's one wonder about that. So anyway, celebrate Rotary on Sunday, and I don't have much more.
Is there any committee chairs that have reports or motions, or is anybody have anything for the good of Rotary in the room or online? Nope. Okay, I want to thank the 8 people who came in on Zoom. Really important that you did. You make up about a third of the total for today's meeting, 2/3 here. And of course, special thanks to the ones who did come through all the slush and snow and joined us live. Really appreciate that. Next week is Rotary After Hours, and we're back here in 2 weeks. So if there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you,
Have a great.
Great job, Ron.
Safe travels back to Canada, folks. Maria and Anna, safe travels.
Thank you.
We'll try to keep the runways open.
Okay, thank you.
Stephen,
Yeah,
stay on for a second.
will do.
When are you here until?
We leave on Tuesday.
Oh, you're not here that long.
I was
Okay.
struggling. That wasn't me. It was
Yeah.
just me. What's happening?
Okay, and how are you feeling?
Yeah, fine, terrific. I played a couple of rounds of golf. I played yesterday. Had quite a good round, and so that was good. And we've been fairly busy getting
Several
together
people
with
so
friends
that each
whilst we're here.
pod
So that's
will have
been good.
somebody.
Yeah, we need.
That's good. So you're getting out and golfing, and you're feeling all right?
Yeah, really. How's your golf going?
Foolproof, but then the
Golf
little
is good. I'm playing on
thing,
Thursday and
you know,
Friday.
Click it and it goes
And I'm
on.
playing
Somehow
Sunday and
it was
Monday.
Last week.
Playing about 3 to 4 times a week.
Right, good. That's terrific.
Yeah,
No, I
sounds
just
good.
played twice.
This
But,
this is the hill I'm gonna die.
I played 18 holes
We
twice.
gotta-
It was
we gotta
it was
stay high.
enough. I
Well, at
could
least
have
you're
played
getting out,
more
which is nice.
later this week, but it's enough.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. yeah.
Good, okay, so how much longer, you're down there till what, the end of March?
Yeah, I'm down here until the end of March, probably leaving on the 31st and coming home be home on the 1st. We have
Right.
hockey tickets on the 2nd, and then starting to travel again on the end of the month, at the end of April.
Right.
So
Okay,
figure I gotta get home. But yeah, it's, if are you coming back down again or are you done?
Don't know. Just
Okay.
don't know.
Okay. Well, let me know. Love to see
Will
you. I might
do.
come up or whatever. We'll figure something out.
Okie
Always up for a
dokie.
day trip. Anyway, be well.
All right,
Say hi to
thanks. You
Debbie
too.
for me.
And say hi to Amy.
I will. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.